I never thought my singing would lead to anything more than personal satisfaction. My name is Alex, and I've always found solace in music, letting my voice fill the empty spaces of my modest apartment whenever I thought no one was listening. I'd moved into this building about 6 months ago, a simple 3-story complex with 8 units where most residents kept to themselves. That's how I preferred it, honestly. The freedom to belt out show tunes or indie ballads without judgment was something I cherished after years of roommates who'd roll their eyes at my excessive vocal exercises, as one particularly annoyed former roommate put it. My neighbor across the hall, Jamie, was what you might call conventionally attractive, the kind of person who looks like they stepped out of a casual menswear catalog without trying. We'd exchanged the standard neighborly pleasantries since I moved in. Morning, nice weather, and the occasional, did you hear that weird noise last night? But nothing beyond surface-level interaction. I knew he worked in finance, always left early in the morning in crisp button-downs, and sometimes returned with grocery bags from the organic market down the street. He also had a girlfriend who visited occasionally. I'd seen them together enough times to piece that together. Not that I was paying special attention, of course. Music has been my emotional outlet since childhood. When words failed, melodies spoke for me. I never pursued it professionally. My day job as a graphic designer pays the bills, but singing was the thing that made my soul feel alive. Let me explain why this matters. For people like me, creative expression isn't just a hobby, it's oxygen. It's how we process our emotions, how we make sense of the world. And on that particular Wednesday evening, I needed that release more than usual after a client had torn apart a design I'd spent weeks perfecting. So there I was, windows cracked open to let in the spring breeze, completely immersed in Adele's Someone Like You. It's a song that requires vulnerability. You can't half commit to those notes, or they fall flat. I was giving it everything, eyes closed, fingers lightly playing imaginary piano keys in the air, completely unaware that my private concert had an audience. The final notes were still hanging in the air when 3 distinct knocks on my door jolted me back to reality. My heart immediately lodged somewhere in my throat. Had I been too loud? Was someone coming to complain? I quickly calculated the time, 7:30 p.m., not exactly quiet hours, but still. I smoothed down my t-shirt, took a deep breath, and opened the door with an apology already forming on my lips. But there stood Jamie, leaning slightly against my doorframe, a look on his face I couldn't quite decipher. "Hey," he said, with a half-smile that made my stomach do an unexpected flip. I heard you singing just now." My face instantly heated. "I'm so sorry if it was too loud. I get carried away sometimes and—" No, he interrupted, shaking his head. "I wasn't coming to complain. I was actually coming to say you have an incredible voice. Seriously, I've heard you a few times through the wall, but that was something else." I stood there, mouth slightly open, completely unprepared for compliments. "Oh, thank you. That's really nice of you to say." An awkward silence followed, both of us standing in the doorway, neither sure what came next in this unscripted interaction. Finally, he ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture I'd come to recognize in the weeks that followed, and said, "I play guitar, you know. Not professionally or anything, just for fun." "Really?" I replied, genuinely surprised. Jamie didn't strike me as the musical type. His precise haircut and methodical routine seemed at odds with the free-spirited musician image. "Yeah, since college. Mostly acoustic stuff. Actually, I've been trying to learn that Adele song you were just singing." He laughed a little, though I don't think I could ever do the vocals justice like you just did. And just like that, a conversation bloomed. We talked about music for nearly an hour, standing in my doorway until my feet started to ache. He liked classic rock and indie folk. I favored soulful ballads and Broadway classics. He admitted to having a secret love for 80s power ballads, and I confessed my guilty pleasure was early 2000s pop. It was strange how easily we fell into conversation, like old friends reconnecting rather than neighbors who barely knew each other's last names. As our conversation wound down, he hesitated before saying, "My girlfriend and I broke up last month, actually." The information seemed to come from nowhere, and I wasn't sure why he felt compelled to share it. She moved to Seattle for work, and neither of us was interested in long distance. He shrugged, trying to appear casual about it. "Anyway, I've been trying to fill my evenings with something besides Netflix, so I've been playing more guitar lately. That's probably why I noticed your singing." I nodded, unsure how to respond to this personal revelation. Well, feel free to knock again if you ever want to talk music, I offered, immediately wondering if that sounded too forward. But Jamie smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reached his eyes. I might take you up on that. And with that, he returned to his apartment, leaving me standing in my doorway, replaying our conversation and wondering what had just happened. The next few days, I found myself singing more frequently and perhaps a bit more loudly than usual. I told myself it wasn't intentional, that I wasn't hoping for another knock, but deep down, I knew better. There was something intriguing about Jamie, not just his physical appearance, though that certainly didn't hurt, but the way his eyes lit up when he talked about music, the thoughtful way he listened when I spoke. 3 days later, the knock came again. This time, Jamie had his guitar with him, a beautiful cedar-top acoustic that looked well-loved. I was wondering, he started, a hint of nervousness in his voice, if maybe you'd want to jam together sometime? No pressure, just for fun. That first impromptu jam session in my living room was awkward at first, both of us stumbling through songs, trying to find our rhythm together. But by the third song, something clicked. His guitar playing complemented my voice in a way that felt almost magical. We ended up playing for hours, losing track of time until we realized it was nearly midnight. These musical evenings became a regular occurrence. Twice a week, sometimes more, Jamie would knock on my door, guitar in hand, and we'd lose ourselves in music. We covered everything from the Beatles to Billie Eilish, sometimes creating mashups that made us laugh until our sides hurt. In between songs, we talked about our jobs, our families, our dreams. I learned that Jamie had almost pursued music professionally before his parents convinced him that finance was a more stable path. He learned about my childhood in a small town, where singing in the church choir was my only creative outlet. But as our friendship deepened, so did my confusion. There were moments, fleeting instances when our eyes would meet during a particularly emotional lyric, or when our hands would brush as we reached for the same sheet of music, that made me wonder if there was something more developing. But then Jamie would mention an attractive woman he'd met at work, or reminisce about his ex-girlfriend, and reality would come crashing back. He was straight. We were friends. Anything else was just my imagination running wild. The situation became more complicated when Jamie invited me to a work function, a casual Friday happy hour with his colleagues. They're tired of hearing me talk about this amazing singer I jam with, he explained. They want to meet you. I agreed, flattered but nervous. Walking into that bar, seeing Jamie's face light up when he spotted me, feeling his arm wrapped around my shoulders as he introduced me to his coworkers, it all felt so natural, so right. And yet, throughout the evening, I had to remind myself of the boundaries. Every time someone asked if we were together, Jamie would laugh and say, "No, we're just neighbors. Friends." Each time, the words stung a little more. One of his coworkers, after a few too many drinks, pulled me aside. "You know he talks about you all the time, right?" she said, her words slightly slurred. I've never seen Jamie so animated about anyone before. Not even when he was with Melissa. When I didn't respond, she added, "Just saying. The way he looks at you isn't how most straight guys look at their buddy." Her words stayed with me, planting a dangerous seed of hope that I tried desperately to ignore. The last thing I wanted was to ruin our friendship by misreading signals or projecting my own feelings onto him. But it was becoming increasingly difficult to silence the voice in my head that wondered, what if? The turning point came unexpectedly. A local cafe was hosting an open mic night, and Jamie had been encouraging me for weeks to perform. "Your voice deserves an audience larger than just me," he insisted. After much persuasion, I agreed, though the thought of singing in public made my palms sweat and my heart race. The night of the open mic, Jamie came over early to help me practice. I was a bundle of nerves, second-guessing my song choice, my outfit, everything. What if they hate it? I asked, pacing my living room. What if I freeze up and forget the lyrics? Jamie put his hands on my shoulders, steadying me. "Hey, look at me," he said softly. "You're incredible. Your voice moves people. It moved me, right? That's why I knocked on your door that first day. Because your singing made me feel something I couldn't ignore." There was an intensity in his eyes I hadn't seen before, a vulnerability that mirrored my own. For a moment, we stood there, the air between us charged with unspoken words. Then, almost imperceptibly, he leaned forward. My breath caught, time suspended as I tried to process what was happening. But before anything could happen, my phone alarm went off, the reminder I'd set to leave for the cafe. The moment shattered, and Jamie stepped back, clearing his throat. We should get going, he said, not meeting my eyes. The walk to the cafe was quiet, both of us lost in our thoughts, the almost moment hanging between us. The cafe was packed when we arrived, and my anxiety returned full force. Jamie found us seats near the stage while I added my name to the performance list. As I waited for my turn, watching other performers, my mind kept replaying that moment in my apartment. Had I imagined the way he leaned in? Was I seeing what I wanted to see? When the host called my name, Jamie squeezed my hand and whispered, "You've got this." I walked to the small stage on shaky legs, adjusted the microphone, and took a deep breath. The song I'd chosen was "Make You Feel My Love," a song about unrequited feelings, about loving someone who might not see you that way. As I sang, my eyes found Jamie in the crowd. He was watching me with such intensity, such open admiration, that everything else faded away. It was just him and me, the lyrics flowing between us like a conversation we'd been too afraid to have. The applause when I finished was overwhelming, but all I could focus on was Jamie's face, the unmistakable sheen of tears in his eyes, the proud smile as he stood, clapping louder than anyone else. When I returned to our table, he hugged me tightly, whispering, "That was beautiful," against my hair. We stayed until the cafe closed, riding the high of the performance, talking animatedly about the other musicians, avoiding any mention of what had almost happened earlier. It wasn't until we were walking home, the night air cool against our skin, that Jamie finally broke the silence. "I've been thinking a lot lately," he said, his voice quiet but steady. "About us. About what we are to each other." He stopped walking, turning to face me under a streetlight. "I've never felt this way about a guy before. It's confusing and scary, and I don't know what it means for who I am or how I've always seen myself." He took a deep breath. "But I know that when you sing, it's like you're singing directly to my soul. And I know that when I'm with you, I feel more myself than I've ever felt with anyone else." My heart was pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. "Jamie, You don't have to say anything," he interrupted. "I just needed you to know. I don't have all the answers. I don't know if I'm straight or bi, or just Alex sexual." He gave a small, nervous laugh. "But I do know that whatever this is between us, it's real. And if you're willing, I'd like to explore it. Slowly. Figure it out together." In that moment, under the soft glow of the streetlight, with the echo of my performance still hanging in the air between us, everything changed. Not with a dramatic kiss or a grand declaration, but with the simple acknowledgement of possibility. The recognition that sometimes the most unexpected connections can lead to the most profound changes in how we understand ourselves. We walked the rest of the way home hand in hand, talking about everything and nothing, both nervous and excited about this new territory we were entering. When we reached our building, standing between our respective doors, Jamie leaned in again. This time, there was no interruption. The kiss was gentle, questioning, a beginning rather than a conclusion. It's been 3 months since that night. Our relationship is still evolving, still being defined. Jamie is still working through what it means for his identity, and I'm learning to be patient, to give him the space to figure that out. We still have our jam sessions, though they now often end with more intimate forms of connection. He's introduced me to his parents as his special friend, not quite a boyfriend yet, but more than just a neighbor who sings. Looking back, I'm grateful for that evening when my singing carried through the walls, when Jamie found the courage to knock on my door. It reminds me that sometimes the most beautiful connections come from allowing ourselves to be heard, to be vulnerable. Music brought us together, but it's the authentic sharing of ourselves that keeps us connected. I don't know what the future holds for Jamie and me. Labels and definitions are still fluid, still being negotiated. But I do know that every time he knocks on my door, guitar in hand, and that warm smile on his face, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And when we sing together now, there's a new dimension to the harmony we create. The sound of two people discovering each other, note by note, day by day. So if you ever find yourself holding back, afraid to share your passion or your voice with the world, remember this. Sometimes, the most unexpected people are just waiting to hear exactly what you have to offer. And sometimes, a simple knock on the door can be the beginning of the most beautiful song you'll ever sing. Total underscore ch underscore count, 13,512.